Hi and welcome. I'm so glad you made it. You did the hardest thing. You've made it here on time and you're here together with us for One Size Doesn't Fit All, 6 tools for intercultural communication and intercultural conflict resolution. My name is Leanne Reagan and I'm so pleased that you made it here. You're here with our Learning and Development Roundtable community, and you belong here. You did the hardest part. You showed up, you cleared space, you cleared the decks, and you're here online with us. A special welcome and thank you. Let me know in the chat. Ceci has a question here. Connect to the link. Oh, okay, Ceci, I'll redo that link. I'm not sure what's happening there. But a special welcome. Is anyone joining from New York? So the UN in New York is promoting the roundtable for the first time. So let me know in the chat. Are you joining us from New York? Okay, we've got a bunch of other folks joining. So lovely. Welcome, Vesna and Alta. Hi, great. Welcome, welcome. And Thea, Ruba. And again, let me know if I am mispronouncing your name. We're going to dive into a bunch of different tools here. We're going to focus on the surprising way that your brain tricks you into making cultural mistakes and how to get around that. We're going to focus on identifying your areas of how cultural communication of cultural communication and how to stretch in a way that's easy and comfortable. We're going to uncover your tendency towards magical thinking and what to do about that. You'll learn how to get to certainty by first dancing with some uncertainty or ambiguity. And you're going to discover how to stay out of the I.C.U. Some of you might know that as critical care by using my I.C.U. tool. You're going to identify how you feel about conflict and what that has to do with anything and how knowing how you feel about conflict can move you forward. And if you are a UN staff, you can count this towards your UN mandated training. So once again, welcome. Let me know in the chat, how many roundtables have you been to? Is this your first? Is this your third, your sixth? Let me know. And know that this is meant to be a supportive community focused on learning. So any human that is interested in learning, training, education, expanding how you think and how you act and how you work is welcome here. And also, I really want to acknowledge this is a place to receive. So receive support and learning, and it's also a place to give. I have had the privilege of facilitating this group for about, I think we're closing in on 10 years now, almost the end of this year. And I know that there are amazing folks in our community here and on the call today. So please, I know that there's lots of expertise in the group. So please feel free to offer your advice, your tips, your tricks, what's worked for you. If this is the first time, I see a couple of first time. Great, great, great. Lots of first time. This is your first time, especially meeting me. Know that my name is Leanne Reagan, and I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. But let me know in the chat, which of these are you interested in? So put a number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and I'll briefly give you some background about myself. Okay, Maha says 2. So Inuit knows Twitch. Okay, so in terms of intercultural conflict and communication, I had the privilege of twice actually now going up into the Canadian Arctic and doing a youth exchange. So leading youth, doing a youth exchange with Inuit communities. And what I noticed there is in the particular community we were in, which was 500 miles north of the Arctic Circle, we went there in the dead of winter, is in this particular hamlet, this community, people communicated yes and no in ways that I wasn't used to. So twitching my nose, this was no, and this, raising my eyebrows, was yes. So this is yes, and this is no. So when the kids came to me and asked if they could go out on the land, meaning out on the frozen tundra, and I'm straining to understand what they're asking me, my eyebrows have gone up, and all of a sudden 40 kids go running out, running out of the room. So that was a really lovely, in so many ways, a lovely intercultural experience. Okay, I see some ones here from Ricardo, Martha, Vesna. Okay, one, broken cup and culture. So I had the privilege of living in a indigenous community in Mexico when my older son, he was about 1.5, and we were at a family party, and my little guy, still to this day, it was very, very outgoing. And he dropped a cup that broke, and I was horrified. This community was not very socioeconomically wealthy, and I was embarrassed, but everyone else was laughing in the community, in this indigenous community. And I thought, oh, they're just trying to kind of cover up, embarrassment. But what it turned out is, in this particular community, in this particular culture, in the Otomi culture, breaking a cup is good luck. Breaking a cup was good luck. So again, another super interesting intercultural experience for me. Okay, and the last one, oh, Chingus is 3. Okay, so Roslyn, so I'm coming to you from beautiful Nairobi, Kenya in East Africa. And when I've lived here for over a decade now, lucky me, and my children graduated from a school here called Roslyn, which is an international school. It's an evangelical school, and it's an evangelical Christian school. And myself and my husband and our kids were not Christian, and we're not evangelical. So one would think that moving to Kenya, Kenyan culture would be the biggest cultural adaptation. But for us, the biggest adaptation was going to this school and learning the rules of the community and that particular culture. So that's a little bit about me. If this is your first time being here, or your 6th time or 20th time, welcome. Know that I focus on 3 different areas in designing powerful learning for clients. So one is working better together. This is what this particular workshop falls under. So it's communication, conflict resolution, creativity, culture, things like that, team building, lots of team building I do for clients. Then I also do a lot of work around tech tools, so digital engagement. And then thirdly, I work with subject matter experts who need to learn how to design and deliver powerful learning. So that's a little bit about me. I would love, on the count of 3, everyone unmute and say hello in whatever language you wish. So on the count of 3, unmute and say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are coming to us from. So 1, 2, 3, go.
Based in Nairobi.
Oh, I heard some English, Swahili. Awesome. Great. Okay, and tell me, today I have to say particular hats off to coming to a workshop focused on conflict and culture. Conflict is tough enough, but when you add culture to it, it can make even the bravest of us feel a little unsure. So thank you for showing up. I'll also ask you to mute again, please, if you haven't already, and let me know in the chat. So what's one thing you know about conflict? What's one thing you know, or what's one thing you know about culture, or what's one thing you know about intercultural conflict resolution? So what's one thing you know about conflict, culture, or intercultural? Conraz. So Annika, it cannot be avoided, it has to be resolved. Yes, conflict is a part of, if you're breathing and you're human, conflict is a part of life. Okay. Greet says, I'm afraid of conflict. I hate it. I fear it. Greet, kudos to you for saying that, right? For being vulnerable. And there's actually some benefits to that. So towards the end, we're going to talk about how you feel about conflict can be a helpful tool in resolving conflict, however you feel about conflict. Okay, Alta says the need to find common ground. Yes, Nice, Alta. Maha says, one thing about intercultural sensitivity maturity is that you can never arrive. Yes, you can only become more aware of the intersections of some cultures, but never all cultures. Yes, you can never know it all when it comes to culture, for sure. Marco says, all sides need to put an effort into resolving it. Yes, ideally, yes, Marcos. Alina, we need to understand the underlying reasons for the conflict. Absolutely. Ruba says, if not addressed, it will create toxic culture. Yes. Oh, I was just listening to a great podcast on my morning walk on organizational culture. Absolutely. Whoops. We've got more people joining in. And Tyra says, quite often conflict happens because of ignorance and not because of intentions. Oh, yes. Oh, we're going to talk about a skill, Tyra, that deals with that. Doji says, what is true for a culture can be totally different from another. Yes, yes. Agnes, conflict can be an opportunity for change. Oh, nice. Yes, for sure. For social change, for any personal change, yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so just a couple of things before we get started with our topic. Welcome, Sakar. I can see you just joining us. So a couple of things. Number one, you made it here. You carved out time. So please make the most of your learning and participate just as you've begun to. So ask questions, offer ideas, give suggestions in the chat, etc. Also, one of the things that we don't necessarily pay attention to is how do we remember what we're learning? And how do we come back to that later on? So I just put a link in the chat. If you wish, you may be busy working on an electronic note or have a note in Evernote or something like that, or handwriting notes. If you wish, feel free to add this technique. So I've given you a link to the HARP sheet. And the HARP is an acronym that I've designed where H stands for highlights. So once you download this sheet, you can edit it. So you may want to put the highlights from today's workshop. A stands for action. So what do you want to do? What do you want to try? What do you want to do with the knowledge that you're going to get in this roundtable? R stands for resources. I'll share lots of resources with you. The ones that really pique your interest, feel free to put in that quadrant. And then P stands for pictures. So our brains interpret images 600,000 times faster than text. So feel free to doodle in there as a way to kind of help you remember. And you won't be sharing that. That's for your knowledge. Okay, thirdly, only the members, only roundtable members get access to the resources. So let me just share this link with you here. If you're not already a member, please feel free to join up. Becoming a member is different from signing up, RSVPing for a roundtable. If you're a member, it's free. It means you'll get all the invitations. You get the time-stamped video recordings, so you can skip ahead to the parts that you may want to come back to. You get the audio recording, you get a workbook, all of that. So if you're not already a member and you wish to be, please join us. And again, membership's free. And if you find value here, please feel free to share that member link with a couple of friends and colleagues. I would love that. If you are a UN staff, only if you're a UN staff and you want to get credit for this roundtable in terms of your UN mandated annual training, you can sign the attendance sheet, which I've just put in the link. And then also mark your calendars. This is our last meeting for a couple of months. We'll start up again in August, and I'll just put this in the chat, so feel free to copy it if you wish. So we won't meet in June, we won't meet in July, but in August, we'll do a workshop on work-life balance. So that's gonna be really fun. And also, please feel free to give me suggestions for topics. So you can put those in the chat if you have them. And by the way, I'll get to this as well. Every month, I'll ask you to give feedback. It's really, really helpful to hear what's serving you and what I can do better. And in a previous survey, someone asked for a workshop on change management. So what are your thoughts on that? Would you like a roundtable on managing change? Let me know in the chat. And speaking of the survey, every month, again, I'll give you, thanks Ruva, you'd like one, okay. And please feel free again in the chat, give me suggestions for other topics and let me know if that change management workshop would be helpful for you. Every month, I'll give you a link to a survey, and I know surveys can be not super fun to fill out. Mahal likes that too. Okay, great. And I'll give you this link again at the end of today. In exchange for your lovely feedback, know you get entered for a chance to win a Life Lenses assessment, which is a really lovely tool that I've designed and used with thousands of participants. And there's also a little surprise at the end of the survey. Now, unfortunately, last month, and you don't have to give your contact information for sure. So last month I got some great feedback. I didn't have anyone's name in the survey, so I couldn't draw for a winner. So this month we don't have someone who is getting a free Life Lenses assessment. Oh, the template, the link's not working, Thea? Okay, let me, I'm going to make a note because we've had a couple of comments. So the heart plank and also the info page. When you folks are breaking, I'll fix that and get those. Okay. Okay, so any questions so far? Oh, sure. Yeah. Actually, so Ricardo's asking for someone to reshare the heart link. Can someone just copy that and paste it in? Be helpful to our fellow folks. That would be great. So I think, oh, they're saying it's not, did I not put it in there? Yeah. So here, let me just grab it. I can see why it's confusing because it doesn't say in the text that it's heart. There you go. Okay, so how's everyone doing? Let me know, what's your energy level? So you're welcome, Ricardo. On a scale of 1 to 5, let me know. So 1 is I need to go to sleep for a year, and 5 is I can hardly sit still on my chair. So how much energy do you have right now? We got a 3.5, 5, 5, 5, 3, 8. That's great. And by the way, no judgment. However, we've got some 2s, 3s, 3.5, 2, 3. Okay. So hopefully we can add to your energy, add to your gas tank. And at the end of today, our time together, you'll come away feeling energized. Okay, so let us again dive into this topic of not just culture and not just conflict, but intercultural conflict. And the idea here is to avoid that cauldron of doom, that feeling we have sometimes when we hit a conflict and we don't know what to do. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, though, is culture. So for you, let me know, folks, what is culture? Welcome, Dominic. Lovely to have you here. We're just getting started. So what is culture? Some of the definitions I love are culture is what makes meaning in our lives. One of my favorites is it's the collective programming of the mind that divides us into groups. Okay, so we share some of our culture with some people, and we're made up of many different kinds of cultures. It's the interpretive lens through which we view the world. It's what defines us and what others define us by. And they may define us correctly or incorrectly. Right? We can make lots of assumptions about culture. And also, does a fish see the water it swims in? Culture is part of everything we do, we think, we say, our actions. It's so big that sometimes it can be hard to identify because it's just what's normal, natural, and right for us. Okay, Ruba's saying the way we do things. Chinga, beliefs, behaviors, and way of life. Padmarsri is saying a way of life. Thea, things we are used in doing with a group of people and we think they are normal. Yes, yes, for sure. Millicent, socializations, Ricardo, it influences our feelings of belonging. Absolutely. Our culture can make us feel completely like we belong or completely like we are an outsider and we don't belong. Culture comes from the Latin word colere, meaning to build on, to cultivate, to foster. And culture is always changing and growing, right? It's not static. Yes, I see it's traditions, Agnes. Hey, you're in New West, Agnes. Oh, I'm from Vancouver, from Burnaby. Yeah, on the traditional lands, yes. Oh, lovely. Agnes, you may want to say a little bit more about that. So she's recognizing the traditional lands that she's on. That may be a cultural practice that is familiar to some in our group and some that are not. So Agnes, if you want to say more, please feel free. Okay, so now we have kind of talked a little bit about culture. Let's talk about the surprising way your brain tricks you into making cultural mistakes and how to get around that. So I have a question for you. Now I know it's a little bit hard to see, to be careful so it doesn't fall off here, but this is a glass jar and this is a piece of rubber here. And if I carefully tilt it, you might be able to see, I want to make sure it doesn't fall off. There's a Canadian penny there. So I am going to push on this penny. Okay, I'm going to push on here. What do you think is going to happen? Alta's from Vancouver, but lives in the UK. Lovely. So what do you think is going to happen when I push on this penny here? Let me know in the chat. Any guesses? So I've got a glass jar. This is actually part of a balloon, and then there's a penny on here. The fact that it's a Canadian penny doesn't make any difference. Maha saying as the rubber underneath it drops into the jar, it will resist. It will open the jar. Oh, lovely. Okay, so I'm going to press and see. So here I'm going to press. Ah! So it went into the jar. Now, how did that happen? And Pauline's saying the penny could drop into the jar or get stuck in the rubber. Yeah, I like that. Pauline, I love that you gave options there. That's nice. So how did it go from being on top into the jar? How did that happen? So, oh, and by the way, I hope that you can trust me. So now that it's inside, it's not going to fall off. There's no hole there. So hopefully you can see that and trust me. So there's no hole. There's nothing special about this piece of plastic. Magic, Marie-Jo says. Yeah. Pauline's saying the coin caved into the pressure you provided. But how did it not make a hole? How did it not make a hole in it? It says he's talking about adapting. Nice. I like that. So any other guesses? I'm just getting it ready again here. Canadian magic. Magic and maple syrup. Oh, Maha, good guess. There wasn't another coin on the bottom. Oh, you're close. You're very close. There's only one coin. But what it has to do with, let me give you a hint, is it has to do with an assumption you're making. It has to do with an assumption that you're making. What assumption could you just be making? Johnson just joined us. Johnson, we just did a magic trick where I seemingly pushed a coin through a piece of rubber without making a hole in it. Let me know in the chat. Do you want to keep guessing and or do you want me to tell you the answer? Oh, Marcos, the coin was already under the balloon. Yes. Marcos got it. Oh, Maha, was it the coin already in the bottom? Oh, good guess. So I don't know if you can see this, but I stretched the balloon so tight that it looks like it's on top, but it's not. It's actually on the bottom. Right? So it looks like it's on top, but it's actually already on the bottom. So, ta-da! So this was a bit of an introduction. Maha, would this work if you're in person? Yes, it does work. Yeah, it does work because and it helps that I use a brown Canadian penny with a brown balloon, but it's stretched so tight that you can't see that it is. Sorry, I know it's hard to see, but you can't see that it's covering it. And I think this is actually the first time I've done it online. I always do it in person, and people don't get it. So what made that magic trick work was the fact that most people make an assumption that the coin is on top of the piece of rubber, not below. And so it is with intercultural conflict. So our brain tricks us into certainty, right? Our brains like certainty. We're not comfortable with ambiguity. Hi, Kathy, welcome. I'm just making a note in the resource package for members. I'll put, you can actually measure your tolerance for ambiguity. I'll put that in the resource package. So our brains trick us into thinking, I know that person. I know Agnes. I know Alta. I know Amy. However, there's a lot of things that we can make assumptions about in terms of intercultural conflict. So what do you think some of those assumptions could be? And by the way, I'm putting in the chat XCCR. So I did my master's degree in intercultural conflict resolution. That's a very long thing to type out. So I summarize that as XCCR. So anytime you see XCCR, it's cross-cultural conflict resolution. So what are some assumptions we may make about intercultural conflict? Let me know in the chat. That differences lead to conflict. Oh, great, Maha. Nice. Yes. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And sometimes we assume that it's the difference that's causing the conflict. That's not that our values must be the same. Oh, that's a good one. What else? That different is bad. Oh, yes, Pauline. Yes. Especially when we're stressed, overwhelmed, embarrassed, tight on time, right? Sometimes we fall into that assumption of everyone, it's just easier if everyone's the same, and meaning everyone's like me. They are saying everything, how we greet the other person we meet, how we work, organize, engage. Yes, yes, we can make assumptions about everything. That example of eyebrows up means yes and squinchy no means no. Sometimes working with Indigenous people, non-Indigenous people think, okay, you can't have such direct eye contact. But in this Inuit community I was in, if you weren't looking at their face, you couldn't see them saying yes and no. Pauline, that our way is the right way. Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, here are some other examples that I've seen in my research. We make assumptions. Oh, and by the way, if you're just joining us, so folks, you'll get a copy of the PowerPoint, the workbook, the audio recording, timestamp video, as long as you're a member. So all of this PowerPoint deck will go out to all the members. So we make an assumption about the place, right? How many of us have ever thought when we're in conflict, what if we take change of scenery, or asking the person, where do you feel most comfortable? I know we've had some issues. I'd like to chat about that. Where would be most comfortable for you to start talking about this? The time, sometimes we feel like we've got to do it now instead of like, and I'm just using names from our group randomly. Andy, I know we've had some issues. What would be a good time for us to have a chat? How direct or indirect our conversation is. Some cultures, some individuals are very, very direct, and some are very indirect, using symbols and stories and third parties. Some cultures are very fact-based, give me the facts, only the facts, and others are very intuition-based. Some prefer very formal, right? Very, very formal procedure. Others prefer very informal. And by the way, you can approach this from your cultures, so your organizational culture, your passport country culture, your family culture, all of those kinds of cultures, your workplace, your team culture, and you as an individual, because sometimes those things match and sometimes they don't. The purpose of the conflict resolution, we'll talk about that more in a minute. Some folks are more objective, some are more subjective, some are more emotional, some are more logical, sacred and secular. Some intercultural processes involve very sacred techniques and practices and symbols. Others that would be entirely inappropriate. Some are very much led by the individual. So if and again, I'm just going to pull a name at random here. If I and Annika had a conflict, potentially I could assume that it's between her and I, the two of us are individuals, we're going to deal with it. She might assume this is a community issue. We need to involve our community. Some are, let's get to that resolution, very, very linear. Others are very fluid, very fluid. Power, the role of power, we can make assumptions about that. Oh, everyone feels free and easy to speak up. Whereas if there's a big power imbalance, that might be because of our positions at work, it might be gender, it might be age, it might be education, socioeconomic status, literacy, all of those kinds of things can really lead to power issues. And also the purpose, right? Are we, and again, we'll talk about that in a minute. So one of the good things to think about our first skill here is really spend some time on your own and also with the person or people that you're having some intercultural conflict with, and put that through that filter. Am I making any assumptions here? And I'll give you some more tools at the end of our time together today to help you do that. Also saying, we assume we know what won't offend someone. Yes, absolutely. Okay, comments, questions about assumptions? The next one we're going to talk about when we go forward is identifying kind of where you are on some continuums and how to stretch. Maha's saying, we assume we know our own cultural assumptions. Yes, that's such a good one. Because our culture, remember I talked about our culture being so big. Welcome, Ilias. Lovely to have you here. That it's hard to see, welcome Panina, it can be hard to see our culture because so for example, when you were growing up, did anyone ever take a ruler and put this ruler between your nose and their nose and say, this is how far apart you should stand, this many inches or this many centimeters in polite conversation? Did that happen to anyone? When you were growing up, did anyone take a ruler and put that between your nose and their nose and say, this is how many inches or centimeters you should stand? No, of course not, right? I've done this thousands of times, this workshop, related workshops. And it's, unconscious bias, that's no. And we know the instant that someone gets too close or too far away. So everything is open for interpretation, including the assumption of how close or how far away should I be from this person when I'm talking with them, assuming we're in person. There's some research to say that one of the things that makes online communication difficult, other than our bodies physiologically respond different when we're online, is we feel like we're physically closer to people, and that can be stressful. Someone had the analogy of it's about standing about 30 centimeters apart in an elevator without being able to look away. Right? So everything's up for interpretation. Marie Jo, we used an arm instead of a ruler. Okay, yeah. And you may let me know in the chat, have you been part of a culture where people get too close to you or stand too far away? I'm putting those in the chat or in brackets because your measure of what's too close and too far away is from your culture. Padma Sri is saying, in our culture and South Indian tradition, distance is maintained even in family, and there's hardly any touch. Oh yeah, touch is another huge one, right? If one touches top of the head of someone or the shoulder, that can be a welcome connection. And for other individuals and other cultures, that can be a real taboo, especially if there's an age difference, if it's a younger person touching an older person. Okay, Maha says, Egyptian culture, people stand too close, even for me as an Egyptian, but I grew up elsewhere. Ah, nice. Okay, and I'm going to give you a tool. What we're talking about right now, we want to also be careful, and you've done this, Maha, nicely, is to not generalize, right? So, because cultures live and breathe and change. And Vessa saying, yes, had experience when someone gets too close into my space for no reason. Yeah, so potentially that person could be, have nefarious intentions. There could be some harassment, some danger, or it could be someone doing something completely innocent, thinking they're just trying to connect with you normally. Maha, strangers crowd even at banks sometimes. Okay, Ricarda, I experienced that with touch too. Padma C that asked whether to hug someone safer than making assumptions. Yes. Ruba saying, photos for my children where a few times been taken without permission, right? Or hugged and kissed by strangers, not in a bad intention, but cultural differences, right? I remember with my first child, I was out and someone picked up my kid and walked away. And no, where was I? I was overseas somewhere, I think Mexico. And I, that was a first time mom. And, for me, it was unnerving, but they were completely innocent and meant, much kindness. So we're starting to dig into culture. We've talked a little bit about what culture is. And now we're looking at some of the assumptions that we can make when we are trying to resolve an intercultural conflict. And by the way, in talking about culture, so age, socioeconomic status, gender, sexual orientation, religion, and spirituality, if any of those things are part of the conflict, then we have an intercultural conflict. So I think conflicts, without us even being aware of it, 99% of the time are intercultural conflicts. Okay, so let's go back. So I just want to help you. We've talked about some of these assumptions, and now onto the second one is how to identify where you are and kind of stretch. So feel free. I'm going to open up the annotation here. So it's open now. If you're on a phone or a tablet, this will be a little harder. But if you're on a laptop, feel free to circle or put a check mark beside, if you think about a conflict that you've been part of, what was the purpose of the resolution? So what, in your mind, what were you trying to do? Were you trying to get justice? Were you trying to keep the peace? Were you trying to prove you were right? Were you trying to affect social change? Oh, harmony. Okay, that's great. I'm going to add that there. Great. If you have other ones, I can add them as well. Pardon me. Were you trying to get revenge? Were you trying to keep your honor or the other person's honor? This is another way that we can make assumptions. My purpose in the conflict resolution might be different from your purpose. Understand, oh, nice, in true spirit. Okay, put that there. Social change. Okay, so I'll put a little check mark there for you. Oops. Nice. Okay. Anyone else? Prove I'm right. Yeah, exactly. We might not, and someone else said harmony. We might not want to admit that, but oftentimes there's a lot of things happening in our brain when we're in conflict, and we can sometimes lose our ability to reason and think strategically, and we kind of lose ourselves. Okay, so notice, like, if I was in a conflict with someone where my purpose was social change and their purpose in the conflict resolution was to keep the peace, that would be, we'd have an intercultural conflict, right? We have a very, very different, a win-win. Okay, nice. Yeah, another one is, oops, let me just, oops, hang on here. Okay, nice. So another thing you can think about is, what is your purpose, right? So a lot of reflection, a lot of self-reflection here. I'll take a picture of this and I'll put it in the resource package so members can receive that. Okay, I'm going to clear the deck here. And let's now go on to a couple. So right now what we're in is the skill of identifying where you are and being able to flex. So the annotation is still on. And think about a conflict. Think about your typical, comfortable, natural intercultural conflict resolution style. Do you tend to be very direct? Do you say what's on your mind? You're upfront, you know, you're very direct. Or are you very indirect? You might go through a third party. You might quietly allude to something softly and gently. Or are you in the middle somewhere? Or so feel free to annotate the screen. Are you more of a direct communicator, or are you more of an indirect communicator? And if you are on a tablet or okay, so Annika is in the middle. Okay, so just like Annika did. Yeah, no worries, Annika. If you're on a tablet or a phone, feel free to put your answer in the chat and I can mark it for you. Combination. So Alta, would you say, oh, so it's dependent. Oh, nice. Okay. So more direct. Okay, I'm gonna put some here. 95% right here. Welcome, Francisca. Welcome. Oh, Florence put diplomatic. So diplomatic can be very direct and it can be very indirect. So, oh, and Alta is talking about stretching. So it depends on the person. Fernando's very direct. Okay, I'll put you here. Slightly indirect. Okay. Indirect in the sense of the language used. Oh, nice. More of a direct in a diplomatic way, says Ruba. That's great. Okay, indirect, we've got. Okay, so again, take note. You know, the thing to notice here is that not everyone is along this spectrum. So one of the things you can do, because sometimes in conflict, in intercultural conflict particularly, we think we've hit a wall, and you know, often in conflict resolution, we tend to do more of whatever is not working. So we just tend to repeat the same thing in the hope that it's going to suddenly magically work. So keep track here of, okay, maybe I'm a really direct communicator. I'm not getting anywhere. What happens if I move down this continuum and be a little bit more indirect, and vice versa? If you're a very indirect communicator, how can you, if the situation calls for it, be more direct? Okay, Stella's saying 75% direct. Okay. And Dominic's saying situation depending. Yeah. So if you can flex, that is a really powerful skill. Okay, again, I'm going to take a screen grab here. And we're going to go on to one more example, because oftentimes our brains are trying to convince us that there's only one way to resolve a conflict, but instead of finding one way to resolve all conflicts, you know, follow these 3 steps and everything will be fine. What I love to do is let's find 10 ways to resolve the same conflict. So we have 10 different options. If 1, 2, and 3 aren't working, right? We can try other ways. Okay, so similarly, the annotation is open. Here's another way that you can flex. Are you more of a linear person? Like, let's get this done. Let's get this conflict resolved, and we're going to move on to other things. You know, very focused, look straight ahead, straight arrow. Welcome, Da. Thank you for joining us. Or are you more fluid? Like, let's set the tone. Let's you know, in a market in Istanbul, let's go and have tea and talk about our families, and you know, so very, 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 very fluid, and eventually in a roundabout, fluid, organic, iterative way, talk about the conflict. So Vesna saying linear, definitely. Okay. We got another linear, got lots of linear in all caps. Depends on the solution and who you're dealing with. Nice, Brian. That's the point, right? Is being able to flex here. Oh, yes. So I love this. Zylu says linear and being efficient. So that's each of these ends of these continuums have their pros and cons. So linear tends to be efficient, effective in some ways, time sensitive, etc. The downside of linear is when we rush too fast to the solution, the conflict can pop up again. The upside for fluid is it's very gentle and organic and flexible. The downside is it can take a long time and be confusing for people who are more linear. Linear and so Millicent, so notice some of the judgment coming in here. So linear and avoid postponing the problem. So notice how we view the other based on where we are on this continuum. So someone who's very linear can see someone who's as fluid as we're not getting to the point. We're not being efficient. We're actually postponing the conflict. Okay, Alta saying both depends. Okay. De Glacia says mainly depends on the type of relationship involved and the impact implications. Great, great. Okay. I love that you're thinking about these things. Okay, I'm going to take another screen grab here. And I'll put this in the resource package. Again, all members get this. I'll clear the drawing here, and let me know. So we'll move on in a moment to magical thinking here in a second. And then roughly at the top of the hour, by the way, we'll have a break. But any questions so far? Anything on your mind? Pauline saying different cultures respond differently to different approaches. Yes, Pauline, that is absolutely the point, right? We come in with all of our cultural assumptions, and in really good intercultural conflict resolution, we want to be able to flex. Dal, I can see that you're unmuted. Did you have a question? Feel free to ask if you do. Otherwise, I'll ask you to mute. If that's okay. So Dawn, I'm just going to mute you up, but if you do have a question, feel free to ask there. I'm happy to. Okay, and Ceci's saying sometimes intention linear, but in reality fluid. I love your self-awareness. That's great. That's great. Padma is saying, when I'm in conflict, I withdraw to think deeper and take time to respond, but come back linear and more direct. Oh, I love that. I love that. So the continuums here are all about finding your comfort, right? What is normal, natural, comfortable for you, and then being able to shift. Okay. Lovely, lovely. Okay. I think, do we have someone unmuted? Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so some more magical thinking here. So we tend to have this particular type of magical thinking, which I'm going to share with you in just a second here. So I'm going to share this link with you. So you should see that in the chat, and I'm going to bring it up on my screen in just a second here. And I'm going to ask you to go to that screen. So you should be able to see it on my screen now, and I can see people coming in. So I would like you to imagine that you have met someone for the first time. Okay, so you've met this person for the first time. You don't know this, you haven't, this is a new person to you. And I would invite you to go through this list of items starting on row 11 here. And first of all, put your name in the column. You don't have to put your real name. You can put cupcake, you can put sunshine, whatever you want, but just claim a row. So starting in row C, so put your name right there. Once you see that someone's name is written there, please don't work in that column. Okay, so when you put your name there, you're going to claim that column. Great, so we've got MJ, we've got JJ, great. And then go through those items, and please, you'll see once you click on the little arrow, so wrong, I'm just going to use you as an example. So if you can know about the person's personal space, you would click above. If that's something you could know about someone in the first 10 minutes of chatting with them, it will mark that above. If that's something that you wouldn't know about a person, then mark it below. Okay, so MK, no, who's everyone I was just in, feel free to change that. Okay, so you want to go through each one starting on row 11. So elephant lover, I love that, that's great. So claim a row and mark each of these. Is this something you can know about a person or not know about a person when you're chatting about them in the first 10 minutes? What do you mean about time? Oh, Maha. So their sense of time, how their relationship to time, how they deal with time. Oh, there's some interesting things happening here. Try to go through each one. So as you're going through, you can come back to them if you need to, but try to make sure each of those columns, or each of those rows rather, is filled in. Great. Oh, this is so interesting. Okay. Altna, I can add your name here. Here. So you're, oh, so folks, once you've started a row, make sure that you don't write on someone else's row. So Alta, you're on T. Oh, so Alina, so again, so make sure if you've claimed a row, make sure that you're not writing on someone else's row, please. Okay, Annika, yeah, I know it can be a little confusing. I'm just going to stop the recording for a minute while you finish this. I'll come back in a second. Okay, welcome back for those in the future who are doing this. And by the way, if you're watching this pre-recorded video, the links to all the tools that I'm talking about are in the video description. Okay, so folks, make a note. I was mentioning to people who are doing this in real time, and for those of you watching this in the future, please make a note of your total above and your total below the line. So you want to keep track of that. And any guesses what we were looking at here? Any guesses? Why were we doing above and below? Any guesses? And by the way, we're just on the cusp of a break, so do a couple more minutes and then we'll have a break. Any guesses? Why above and below? So actually, we were looking, welcome Claire, I can see you just joined us. We were doing the cultural iceberg. So this is a tool that goes back, oh, interesting, Alta, about outgoing. Oh, Maha, yes, yeah, for sure. I corrected some of the formulas, but not all of them. Oh, thank you. Ma, I love that you noticed that. Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. But we have such a good community. So if you have ever seen an iceberg or know anything about an iceberg, when you're looking at an iceberg, you're only seeing 10% of the iceberg. The 90% of an iceberg is below the waterline. And so it is with culture. And I would argue 10% is actually a really large number. So while we think, because our brains like certainty, our brains do not like ambiguity. And again, I'll send you a link to a survey where you can actually measure your tolerance for ambiguity. We rush to certainty. Hi, Olga. Welcome. So glad you're here. So we make all kinds of assumptions, right? And this magical thinking that I know this person in front of me. So the things that we were talking about are actually, max 10% above the line. So you can look at your findings, and I'm going to guess. Did anyone get 10% or less? Did anybody get 10%? Most people put tons above the line, right? Good, Maha. Okay, that is super unusual. That is super unusual. Now so Maha, yeah, so I would say gender, yeah, absolutely, especially in our growing awareness, right? We don't want to make assumptions about gender. Now, most people put dress above the line. Most people put dress above the line. Now, why would we, so 5, oh, good, Padmasree. Why would we not want to put dress above the line? I mean, you can see what I'm wearing. Why would that not be obvious? Why would we not want to have dress above the line? Oh, yes, Maha, give us an example. Feel free, you can type it or you can say. Okay. So she's saying, I wear a headscarf and sometimes I wear a wool cap. That's a great example. And I'm going to guess, unfortunately, when you wear a wool cap indoors, people think you have cancer. Wow. So I was going to say, I was going to guess that people react differently to you based on what you're wearing on your head, and also potentially react differently depending on where you are in the world. And I would guess that sometimes you feel part of the overall culture and sometimes you may not feel part of the culture, and potentially even dangerous, right? So yeah, so dress actually should not be above the line because dress changes. Brian, people also use dress to hide who they really are. Absolutely. Because think one way, we're trying to create an image, right? Safety sometimes. Weather can influence, and occasion can influence dress. Yes. Diagasius, yes. And Annika, yeah, some people use it to express themselves very openly. Absolutely. Pauline, sometimes people act like the dress and not like themselves. Oh, well, that's such a good quote. I like that, Pauline. Yeah. I mean, I remember, my boys are 20 and 25 now, but when my little one was in kindergarten, so think like 5-ish, he had a good buddy, a little girl, and I went early on in their relationship, in their friendship, to pick him up from the family's home. He'd gone there for a play date, and this was someone I had seen the family pick up the kids, the daughter, lots of times. So and it was someone from the community. Like I felt comfortable, for him to go over there for a play date. And I remember trying not to react, because when I saw them every day picking up their daughter, they had a particular kind of dress. And when I went to pick up my son from their home, they were completely dressed in goth. So very like lots of black and chains and makeup and and it was like, oh, this is such a great example of why we can't assume, right? We just can't make assumptions, even though our brain wants us to assume, right? Our brains do not like ambiguity. Oh, there's Olga. I'm just using names out of the group. I know Olga because of all of these assumptions I'm making and all of these things that are above the line. Okay, who's ready for a break? Are you ready for a 10-minute break? unless you have any questions. Any questions before we break? So give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat. Are you ready for a 10-minute break? Okay, Annika, yes. Okay, great. I can see some people coming in. Okay, so 10 minutes, relax, get a cup of tea, a glass of water, stretch, whatever you like. And please be ready to go again in 10 minutes and we'll continue with our time together. Thank you, everybody. I so appreciate that you're here. Welcome back. If you just had a break, which I hope you did, got a stretch. Ricardo got a tea. Nice, 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 nice. Good. Anyone else? Let me know what you did on your break. Andy fed a cat. Oh, fed a cat. I just about forgot. I have this big Siamese cat and he blends in very well with my couch. And I just about forgot to take him out of my office because sometimes he wants to cuddle when I'm trying to work with folks like you. So got him out of my office. Vesna signed up to become a member. Yay, great. Welcome, Vesna, our newest member. Maha spent time with my mom who's recovering from a small procedure. Oh, Maha, I hope she's doing okay. Annika did the same thing as Vesna. Pauline went to the bathroom, found a charger for my dying phone battery. Yay, glad you found the phone battery. Maha, multitasking. May is just, oops, hang on here. May and Marcos are just joining us. Put my dog in my daughter's bed, hoping it would wake her up. That's great. By the way, earlier on in the chat, Ceci, I know you said you had issues with the information page. So I reshared that. I'll just put it there again. I've redone the page I get a lot of questions. The biggest question I get is, how do I get the resources from the roundtable? So as long as you're a member, you will get the resources and you can become a member with this link right here. But just let me know that introduction page is working. I'm not sure, Ceci, why it wasn't. Okay, great, Ceci. Oh, Padre signed up too. Hey, welcome. Our two newest members. Awesome. Okay, great, Vesna, thanks. Okay, so let's continue on. And by the way, I timestamped the video, so and that resource package will go out early next week. So you get the PowerPoint, the audio recording, the workbook, the video recording with all timestamps. So, okay, so more magical thinking. I wanted to, oh, hang on here, just a second. Here we go. I wanted to talk about, so I've mentioned this several times that our brains love certainty. We will make poor decisions for ourselves just to get to certainty, right? To avoid ambiguity. So I want to help you learn how to dance a little bit with uncertainty first. So this is a really key skill for intercultural conflict resolution. And that skill is simply asking questions. The key is in the question. And I love this quote. So Izzy, apparently Isidore Rabi's parents, Isidore Rabi is a Nobel Peace Prize winner, a physicist. Apparently when growing up, the parents asked Izzy, what good questions did you ask today? What good questions did you ask today? So I would love for you to spend some time thinking about, instead of rushing to certainty, think about what are some good questions you can ask. So I will, in a moment, I'm going to divide you up into small groups. Now, if the shy folks in the group, if your blood pressure has just gone up, take a deep breath and relax. You are welcome to participate as you wish. The reason why I do this is because there's so many cool people in our group today. So please feel free to introduce yourself, and then your task is to brainstorm some questions that you could ask in an intercultural, when you're facing an intercultural conflict. Now, Once again, to lower your blood pressure, not all questions are going to work for every conflict. Not all questions are going to work for every conflict, and that's totally fine. But the idea is to get yourself into the mindset of, instead of seeking the answer right away, to seek out really good questions. So, and in the resource package, I've curated a bunch of examples from past participants. So I have more than 200 examples of questions. I'll put that in the resource package for members. So Maha, yes, so you're going to exactly. So you're going to curate questions. So one of you in the small group, make sure that you're writing them out, because I'd love for you to put them in the chat when you come back. Okay, so try within your comfort level, try to at least get one question per person. So try to get one question per person, so everyone gets a chance to participate, if that's comfortable for you. And then curate those questions and copy and then paste them into the large group chat when you come back. Vesna saying, oh, so Vesna, so that's a great example. How should I address you? It's such a great example. Absolutely good. And Padmercy is saying, I ask questions every day given by dad at dinner table for sharing during childhood. What mistake you did today, or what did you do that you did not like doing today? Great, great. Okay, so it sounds like folks are in the question mode. So in a moment, I am going to put you into small groups, and I'll give you like 7 minutes, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes. And I will give you, so what's going to happen is an invitation is going to pop up on your screen. You just need to accept that invitation. Zoom will automatically put you into a small group. I will give you, pardon me, I will give you a 1-minute warning when it's time to come back to the large group. So any questions on the question? Any questions on the task? Any questions on the task? Okay, then the invitation is going to, Padmasree is saying, do we have to think of questions for others? Or, I'm so glad you asked. So you can think of questions to ask yourself and to ask the other person. Fantastic clarification. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Okay, here you go. So I'm going to break you up into small groups, accept the invitation, and you've got just like let's say 5 minutes, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning when it's time to come back. Here we go. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Lovely to have you back here. Okay, just let me know that you can see my screen okay. I can see that we've got some really great questions here. So from Thea in group 3, would you like this conflict to get resolved? Oh, great question. So kind of teasing out what's going on here. Teasing out a really good assumption there. That's great. In your view, how can this issue be resolved? What can we do better? What would make you feel comfortable in meeting in person? Ruba, it was a tough exercise. Yeah. So remember, you're going to get more than 200 examples. And Ruba, let me know, why was it tough? Why, Fernando? Just the question, why? Some other examples. How do you see what's happening? Oh, really good way to, what does it look like from your perspective? What does it look like from your view? To ask myself a question, Padma says, why is this person not understanding me? What else can I say or do to help this person understand me? And there's an assumption there that they don't, right? So how do I know that they're understanding me or not? Maha, how does this make you feel? Lovely. Ricardo, what have you experienced new today? What has surprised you today? What is the moment that makes you feel passionate and excited about life? Oh, lovely. So some kind of contextual things, right? That's a great one for less linear, like more fluid processes. Why is this person acting this way, from Ruba? Tell me more. Oh, Pauline, that's a great one. But one of my favorites is help me understand. Help me understand, ABC. From group number 7, how do you address a lady politely in your community? Oh, nice. Which group ethnicity do you come from? Nice. Yeah, tell me about your culture. Yeah. Annika, how do I address you? Yeah, you're starting from such a respectful place, giving them agency, giving them input, control. HTV, how can I serve you better? Nice. What are the possible cultural conflicts that may arise? Nice. So kind of looking forward, being kind of preventative, being proactive. Okay, great. Okay. Oh, so good, so good, so good. By the way, oddly, my camera is not showing. Can you see my camera? Can you see me? Let me know in the chat. It's oddly not. Oh, and Jane, you can. Great. Jane saying, how is this situation most troubling to you? Nice. Okay, terrific. Okay, so we've done a lot, right? You have done a lot. So we've talked about how your brain tricks you into making mistakes and how to get around that. We talked about that that coin there, making options. Mercy's just joining us. We talked about how to identify your communication styles and how to flex on those continuums. Hi, Mercy, welcome. We talked about magical thinking, right? All of those assumptions. And then just recently, we talked about how to find some comfort in being uncertain. So some of us want to really rush to resolution instead of thinking about what are some really good questions we can ask. And just, I love that quote from the Nobel Prize winner who, when growing up, was asked, what good questions did you ask today? Like, oh, so good, so good. Okay, so the next one, the second to last one, is how to keep you out of the I.C.U. And I alluded to this, and in some countries I know call this critical care. So we alluded to this a little bit earlier in our time today. One of the really interesting pieces about intercultural conflict. And there's some other, oh, sorry, Alta's asking about group 1 questions. Let me just scroll up here. I will save all these and add them to that list. There's going to be like 250 now or something. We've got group 3. I don't see anything that's marked group 1, so feel free to paste those in if I've missed them. Also, Stella.
I think we may have put them in the wrong place. Should I just mention them quickly?
If you can paste them into the comment, if you don't mind, Alta, because then I can put them into the other document.
Okay, because I think I put them into the chat, and I guess I didn't put them in the right place.
You may have put them in your group chat. I'm guessing that's what happened. So feel free to put them now in, like, you probably put them in the small group chat. So feel free to put them now in the large group chat. And Martha, I'm just going to mute you unless, just let me know if you have a question or such, just because of background noise. And Stella had said, how do I pronounce your name? Oh, that's such a good one. Does your name mean something? Yeah, what's the history? Is there any story behind your name? And how should I address you? These are so good. These are so good. I love these. Okay, and Alta, thanks for checking in, because I want to make sure that I get all the group's questions. Again, I'll take all of those questions that are in the group chat, and I will put them into the document that has probably now 250 questions, and members will get those. Okay, so on to the I.C.U. So one of the things I see all the time in intercultural conflict resolution is a emphasis on culture. And I know that might sound strange, but we can run into trouble when we exclusively focus on culture. So what I invite you to do is focus, you want to pretend that you're juggling and look at these 3 things at the same time. So one of them is individual, one of them is cultural, and one of them is universal. So what do I mean by that? When we look through an individual filter, I'm just going to use someone's name from the group. So if Anthony and I are having an intercultural conflict, I want to look at Anthony as an individual. So what makes him unique? There's never in the history of the universe been anyone exactly like Anthony, and there never will be. So I want to look for things, who he is as an individual. I also want to look at Anthony's culture. So what are some things that he shares with other groups because of his culture? Okay, that's the second thing. Then the third thing I want to do is look at Anthony through the filter of universal. So what are the things that Anthony shares with everyone because he's human? Now, this can get a little bit tricky because we tend to have a preference or a bias for one over the other. But let me give you some examples of why it's problematic to only focus on one of these things instead of all three. That's really where we get into trouble, is when we're only focusing on one. While I'm doing this, feel free to think about an intercultural conflict that you're facing that you can describe really briefly. So feel free to give me an example. Don't mention any names, but I'll run this through one example. So feel free to put an example in the chat while I'm doing this next part of explaining. But again, keep it private, or not private, keep it anonymous. So don't put any names in there, and just describe it very briefly. So if we're only looking through the individual lens, then if Anthony and I are trying to resolve this intercultural conflict, for example, I'm not going to recognize anything cultural about him. So assuming that he is a male, and that's a different gender than me, I might not recognize that cultural piece for him in this intercultural conflict resolution process. I would only look at him as an individual. So if we did that, there'd be no bathrooms that are fitted for people with disabilities. There would be no LGBTQI groups, and all the cultural things are missing. If I only look through the cultural lens, this is where we can stereotype. So Anthony's Indian, so that means ABCD, or Anthony's Kenyan, that means ABCD. So I can really get in trouble by generalizing at the worst, at the minimum, and at the worst, I can stereotype and potentially, just be very, very inappropriate. Oh, he's a male, so that means do, right? So if I'm only looking through that cultural lens, I can get into a lot of trouble. If I'm only looking through the universal lens is all about what do we have in common with everyone because we're human, right? So every human, unless you're very unwell psychologically, we all want to be loved, we all want to belong, we all want to feel respected, those kinds of things. Now, what does love, respect, belonging look like really changes according to culture, but universally we have those needs, for example. So if I only look through the universal filter at Anthony, I might make these very broad statements like, Anthony, let's just get along, and all we have to do is smile and get along and everything's going to be just fine, right? I'm not recognizing him as an individual. I'm not recognizing his culture. So I know that's a lot for the I.C.U. Comments, questions, does that make sense? And Anthony, thank you. I know I used your name there a lot. I hope that's okay. So staying out of the I.C.U., the intensive care unit, is a play on the words of I see you, right? If I see you, I'm seeing you as an individual, and I'm recognizing your culture, and I'm recognizing you universally as a human being. Eugene is saying, looks like individual, cultural, and universal aspects are independent. Yes, highly interrelated. Yes, interrelated. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and the key is to flip, like, think about it as wearing a different pair of glasses, right? When I'm on my computer, I need to wear these glasses. When I'm doing other work, I need to wear these glasses, and the view really changes. It really changes depending on what pair of glasses I have on. So change the filter, and you'll change your view. You'll get more options, more insight, etc. Okay, Alta example, how to support high anxiety PTSD young male relative to receive help from mental health services, which he rejects, fears outright. Oh, so great example. And Alta, I have some deep empathy for mental health issues, especially with young people. I have some history with that. So if we look at that through the individual lens or the individual filter, we want to look at things like, how is this showing up for this person? What are the symptoms of the anxiety, the PTSD? How does that impact his life? What issues is that causing? When we look at it from a cultural perspective, we want to look at potentially his gender, and we want to look at the mental health field, and potentially putting those things together. Young people can be highly, not all, but potentially culturally, can be highly resistant to, I don't want to be seen as different, especially in toxic male culture. I don't want to talk about my feelings, trying to unpack some of what does he think about his male culture as that relates to mental health, and can we look for some resources for people his own age and potentially his own gender that have been where he is and have received support and help and are a little bit further ahead on the path for him in terms of mental health and well-being. For the universal filter, it's all about love and respect and those big, broad feelings, like something like, and you have to change this up for what would fit for this particular person, but something like, oh, and I'm getting kind of emotional because this hits me deeply. I have lots of personal experience with this. I have said a million times in my personal circle, fight the anxiety, don't fight me. I love you. I will always love you. I know this is hard. We're going to get through this together. I've got your back. I'm here for you. I will never leave you. I'm absolutely rock solid here for you. So does that kind of make sense? Can people see? Oh, Maha's talking about my life lenses. Yeah, so life lenses are a different tool. You can get more information about that from my website. But this is a different, the I.C.U. are kind of different filters or lenses if you want. Yeah. Padma Sri is saying, I think more universal and believe it's easy to get along with others, but the reality is not true always, and ask more individual questions when I have a conflict. Oh, that self-awareness is fantastic. And your asset, your strength, where the sun shines, where those strengths are, is your belief that it's possible to get along. So it's not about ditching the universality, it's adding to that, right? It's adding to that. DeGracias is saying, sounds like quite a lot to factor into a conversation, explains why we have so many conflicts along these lines. Needs a lot of practice. Yeah. And yes, it's not easy because you'll default to whatever is normal, natural, and right for you, whether that's individual, cultural, or universal. And try not to put all the pressure on your shoulders. So A, it doesn't have to happen in one conversation. And B, you can say to the person, hey, I learned this thing about I.C.U. Like, are you open? Could I share this with you? And then could we see if we could use this to try to move through this conflict? So you can share that with people. Brian saying, in some cultures, boys don't cry and considered being weak if they admit he has a problem. Yeah. So Brian, you're very beautifully using that cultural lens. Yeah, exactly. That may or may not be true for him, that particular individual. So you'd want to dive into that piece. That's the culture piece. Yeah, absolutely. So when you combine mental health and gender, you can really get a pretty toxic, I don't need any help. I'm not a sissy. I'm not going to talk about my feelings. That's an important cultural piece to know about, if that's true in this situation. I don't know. Padma Sri is saying very true for India. Yeah, so this is a good example. So India so many cultures, right? So you want to be careful about making that, that very broad generalization. So in your experience in, some parts of India, that's true. Okay, Dao is saying conflict between race, religion, and age. Yeah, so those are all cultural pieces, absolutely. Hence why often from experience, we involve folks who've recovered, from PTSD to assist with the recovery phase. Yeah, absolutely. And especially with young people, if they can see, in my experience, if they can see someone who's close to their age, it's one thing for them to see, an adult, that's great. And often, their treatment professionals will be adults. If they can see someone who's around their roughly their age, that can also be very, very powerful. Okay, that was a great example. Oof, touch close to home. So I hope that you can see how not staying in one of those filters, but using all of those filters really opens up your options, really opens up options and choices and ways to navigate and move through that conflict. Okay, great job, everyone. Okay, we just have one more left, and that's identifying how you feel about conflict. So this is a quick one, and we'll do this in just a moment, and then we'll close for today. So big pats on the back to everyone. I love all of your comments and questions. They're fantastic. Just a reminder, if possible, I'd love to see group one's questions so I can put those into the collated questions. Okay, I would love for you to think about how do you feel about conflict? So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment, and I'm going to ask you to turn on your camera just for a moment if you can. If you feel comfortable, this will just be for a minute. Hi, Ceci. Hi, Alta, Vesna, Greet. Hey, Greet. Padmerse, Alina, Martha, Ricarda, Maha. Oh, so great to see everyone.
Hi.
Okay, so I would like you to imagine that I've just placed a string in your hand. Okay, so you're holding onto this string. And I want you to imagine that we're all standing in a circle, and this string is going around the circle. Okay, so we're all holding onto the same string with our hands. We're standing in a circle, and we're holding onto this string. I invite you now, with this pretend string, to hold the string at the level that represents, in general, how you feel about conflict. So if you hold it up high, it means bring it on. I love to debate. I love to stir up the pot. I love conflict, social change. I might just say things to provoke conflict because I love conflict. If you hold it as low as you can on your screen, that means for whatever reason, your culture, your personal history, survivor of trauma, whatever, you're very leery of conflict. It makes your blood pressure go up. It's scary. It's difficult. You would rather do many, 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 many other things than address a conflict. And then you can hold it anywhere else. It doesn't have to be just here or just here. It can be anywhere else you like. So on the count of 3, pretend to hold your pretend string where we can see it. So 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. Okay, great. Now, I would like you to imagine, so I can see Alta is relatively high, Padmerse is relatively low, and there's no judgment. There's no judgment about that. But what I would like you to do, and I know some people are having a hard time with their camera. If you can't, I trust you that if you're able to turn on your camera, that's great. And if you couldn't, that's fine. I'm going to bring you back to our screen here. And I want you to imagine, just a second here. Just going to pin my video again for the recording. I want you to imagine what influence would that have if we were doing this in real life. So we were standing in a circle and we were holding on to these strings. What influence would that have in real life? So if you're holding that string up or you're holding the string down, I did this one time, I'll never forget, for a group that was going overseas to live together and work together. And the group leader stood on a chair and held the string up as high as she could, while the person beside her was trying to get the string as low as she could. And the person down here looked up at the person here and said, "Oh my God, I hope I'm not rooming with you." I'll never forget that. Okay, so we've got some new messages here. Yeah, so Maha, yeah, tension, right? There's going to be pull. We so often come to conflict resolution focusing on how do we get through this resolution? How do we get to, I don't like feeling this way. I want to move through this conflict with you, get it resolved. But we don't think about all the things we bring to the table, including how we feel about conflict. So that's not saying push and pull, right? So the person down holding it lower might feel pressure to go higher, and the person holding it high might feel pressure or pull or tension to go lower. So yes, Stella, and at the same time, there's all connection. So the next time, I'll leave you with this last skill here. When you're focusing on an intercultural conflict resolution, think about how you feel about conflict. So if you're up there, you may want to think about how can you come down on that continuum or that axis. And if you're down here, you may think about how do you need to rise up a little bit. So that we've got just a couple of minutes left. We've covered a lot of ground. We talked about how your brain tricks you into making cultural mistakes, right? All these assumptions. We talked about those different continuums and how to flex. Remember that the title of this workshop is One Size Doesn't Fit All. So I'm trying to give you lots and lots of options. So instead of one way, just all you have to do is follow these 5 steps, like an infomercial, right? And every conflict will be resolved. It's like, instead of one way to resolve all conflict, let's find lots of ways to move forward with one conflict. Including, our magical thinking. That's that we did the iceberg and how we love to rush to certainty instead of actually stepping back and thinking, do I really know that? We talked about the skill of asking questions. Such a powerful, simple thing. And then how to stay out of the I.C.U. by focusing on the I.C.U., the individual and the cultural and the universal. I gave you this workshop, this worksheet here. So, it's one thing, to make time to come to these workshops. Please, if you can, just after our workshop, spend a couple minutes kind of curating, processing what you've learned, thinking about what were the highlights, what actions do you want to take, what resources do you want to hang on to. So the next time you face a conflict, you can come back to these resources. Ceci's saying, put the fish on the table. Help me understand, Ceci, I'm not quite sure. And Diogracia says, when everyone is pulling their way, things may break and become even worse. No resolution reached along those lines. Absolutely. Yeah, that string can break for sure. So do these now. If you are interested in becoming a roundtable member, if you're not already, feel free to sign up. I'll just give you all these links here quickly. That's how you get the PowerPoint recordings, all of that. That I've mentioned that several times. Please share the link with some folks. I'd love to grow our community. It would be lovely. The more, the merrier. And there's a link to the feedback survey. So if you fill in that survey, you get a chance to influence the next workshop. So which is on work-life balance. So what do you want to see in that workshop? And you also get a chance to win a free Life Lenses assessment, and you get a funny little surprise at the end. So feel free to do that. If you are a UN staff person, make sure you fill in the attendance sheet. That's how you get the credit for coming today. Also, there is a learning and development Facebook group, so we can communicate in between meetings. And the next one, we're saying goodbye for a couple months. We'll take a summer break or winter break, depending where you are in the world. And our next one is August the 18th from 5 to 7 p.m. East Africa time. And that's going to be on work-life balance. Ceci's saying, put the fish on the table is an expression that means raising a difficult issue and openly dealing with important differences. Oh, Ceci, I like that. If you feel comfortable, Ceci, let us know what tradition that comes from, what culture. Ruba's saying, I would suggest a topic on building individual and organizational resilience. Ooh, in the face of conflicts. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's really great. Okay, Aruba, I love that. And keep them coming. There's a space in the survey. You can always email me as well with more suggestions. Dow is saying pushing strategy can use. Yeah. Stella, how to manage the tension and connection beneficially, like flying a kite. Oh, nice. Some of that will come in the work-life balance workshop. Anika likes Ruba's suggestion. Okay. So as a final reminder, because I get this all the time, how do I get the resources? How do I get the resources? You just need to be a member, and I'll aim to get those out probably Monday. All that email will go out with the timestamp video, the workbook, etc. And finally, if you have a need for your team, if you'd like more work around working better together, conflict resolution, communication, culture, all of those kinds of things, and or digital engagement work, and or training trainers, please do let me know. I'd love to be of service. Oh, Ruba's our newest member. Thank you, Ruba. Love, love, love. So please, everyone, stay well, stay safe, stay creative. Hope to see you in August. Sounds so far away. And thank you for coming. I really, really, really appreciate your time, carving out time to learn and share, and has just been really, really great. So I'm grateful for you. Stay well, everybody. I am going to stop the recording. So goodbye to future self.